Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Infrastructure Services Committee meeting. Welcome to staff, fellow councillors, Mr Mayor, the press and any public. I'll call for apologies. There are none. Declarations of extraordinary business. We'll skip through quickly. Declarations of interest. Infrastructure Services Committee held on the 9th of July. Would somebody like to move that it be taken as read and confirmed, because full council has already confirmed this? Councillor Lovett moved, seconded Councillor Rawlinson. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Road Safety Coordinating Committee minutes, page 8. Any comments from the Madam Chair at all?
Who?
No.
The Chair of the Road Safety Coordinating Committee.
You go first.
I just, in the Road Safety Committee, we talked about there was a road, Acton Road at Rakaya, or Dorrie, and Gardners Road, which said there was a corner which was going to have a speed reduction put on it and some reflectorised things on it as well, because there'd been 2 accidents on it in the last probably 2-3 months. Well, and last Friday there was another one, that same corner, and it hasn't been done. Nothing's been put up yet, and we need to put something up before someone is killed there. 3 accidents in the last 3 months, and there has been more than that over the years. But in that report, it's not here, but in the report we had road safety, it said it had been done, but it hasn't.
I'll look into that. Yeah. Any other comments? If somebody like to move that these committee meetings be received? Oh, Councillor Mackay, you've got a
question, if I may, Mr Chair. It's a long shot, but I might as well try. I see that Neil Simons was absent as Mid Canterbury Principals Association. So my question is, how are the placement of speed limits outside schools progressing in discussions with the different schools? Probably out of order, but I thought I'd try.
you know.
Perhaps Mr Firth could say, have we begun any meetings with the various schools regarding the speed limits, revised speed limits, Brian?
We haven't been to any of the schools as of yet. We wanted to get clearance with NZTA first.
Okay.
That's right.
As soon as we get clearance from NZTA, we will meet with the schools. Yep.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just 4.3 NZTA. Are they still keen to put those limits or those barriers through the middle? Is that correct? And when? I thought it was all Kent, but apparently it's not.
Who can answer that?
I think Diane can.
Turn your light off, Brian.
I had just been about to bring that to everyone's attention that John Keenan from NZTA did report that they still intend to put the median barrier, the wire rope, down the middle of the road, north and south of Rakaya, and then they intend to continue it through to Ashburton. He was challenged on the day, but they do intend to do it.
Mr Mayor.
I was talking to Jim Harland, who was over all that the other day in Christchurch, and asked him that question, and as to what was happening with the that project. And what I said to him, what John Keenan said here was, his response was it was news to him.
Yes.
So it's not progressing very fast at all, if at all.
So Mr Harlan would be a bit further up the tree than Mr Keenan.
Yeah.
Any further comments? Councillor Lovett.
I was just before I move it to drop that the invitation. There was a bit of confusion over the asking the Selwyn district were keen to come down just to see how we ran our meetings, and really we were only looking at one representative sort of coming down to see how we ran our meetings, who we involved in them, and also was there any really at a higher level joint things we could look at, and probably discussions around that were over that medium strip, because it was going to affect the Selwyn district and us in the way testing station, and I think there was another issue there as well. So it was more collaborative, not joining up or anything.
Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, and just to speak on the same matter, last term we had a couple of Selwyn district councillors come and observe our road safety meetings, so it's probably just a continuation of that, but nothing ever sort of came of the last times they visited.
Somebody like to move? Councillor Lovett moved, seconded Councillor Ronson, that these minutes of the Road Safety Coordinating Committee be received. All in favour, please say aye. Contrary? Carried. Item number 6, Main Street Wastewater Pipeline. Welcome, Mr Guthrie. You've all read the report. Any questions of Mr Guthrie? Mr Mayor.
I'm just looking for the map, yeah, and read the report. I'm not sure what the road is called. It's Racecourse Avenue. Yeah. Is there a sewer pipe in there now, in Racecourse Avenue?
No. That part of Methven is actually serviced through rear property sewers. So there's a sewer mid Racecourse Avenue and the next street down. Spaxton.
No further questions. Councillor Lovett.
We're just going to ask the hot pools, where are they feeding into?
They've been redirected out through the Camrose development, as I understand.
Mr Mayor.
Just one other question. There was a letter there from Davy Lovell Smith, and it talks about the recent, the club's land was not included in the sewer upgrades recently installed as part of the town. Should we have included them in it, or what's around that?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. There was actually an attachment that got missed. I actually had the officer's reply in the report as well, and that clarified that matter. But the upgrades he's talking about are our ongoing renewal program, but that renewal program is only consisting of pipe relining, so it doesn't provide any additional capacity. It's also quite limited. We're only doing about 100 to 150 metres of pipeline a year.
Councillor Brahm.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just a question regarding Camrose subdivision, what is next to it. They discharge what, through Barkers Road? And was there a pipeline there, or did they have to put it in?
No, I think they've done their own extensions,
Yes.
but they've been able to utilise the existing reticulation.
On Barkers Road, yeah.
Councillor Ronson.
Thank you. Andy, just to the southwest of this development, further along Racecourse Avenue, the newer homes on the hillside of that, do they all feed into that other sewer system you were talking about too, through other sections over into the next street down?
I'm just not quite sure how many of those are actually developed at this point or sewered, but certainly the eastern side of Racecourse Avenue is supplied through the back sewer system.
So, supplementary, so just by that, all those other new houses that go right down to the bend on the same side as the racecourse, they wouldn't have septic tanks though, would they? Where are they piping into?
Yeah, look, I'm not I'm not too sure. It should be noted though that this development is a lot bigger than is currently shown on that plan.
I realise.
So there will be a great deal more coming into this line.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor,
In the developers' letter, they're suggesting we should give them 332,000, and you're suggesting we give them 82 or something, is it?
58.
58. Why the big difference?
The letter was based on some fairly ambitious calculations. Effectively what they were saying was the additional capacity left over that they don't need is all available for us. So they were suggesting that we should pay for all of that. My calculation is based on what we could foreseeably use of that capacity.
personally, I think we have to, if we make a decision as a percentage or as a fixed figure, that's our options, or else do nothing. Councillor Brown.
Mr. Chair, I'm quite happy to put a motion, and it's option 2. Make a contribution based on potential future use for ADC.
Which page is that on?
I've got it on page 10 or 11, whatever you want to see it. Sorry, it's 11 on mine. On 10, sorry, option 2.
Oh, the recommended option.
Yeah.
You've moved that?
Yes, I do.
S-
Sorry, am I? Option 2. Yeah, option 2, sorry. Yeah.
You finished?
Sorry, yeah.
Are you seconding Councillor Lovett?
I would second it, but also query.
Hang on, if you second it,
I'll
you second it.
Okay,
Righto,
I'll
and then
second
any
it.
discussion on the motion?
And
Yes, you're right, you can,
I was just going to. I like option 2, but wondering whether we could. Did Councillor Brahms make a comment on the figure, even if we just did 50,000? But
To be quite honest, I'm quite happy with the 28% what the recommendation is, to be honest. That's fair as far as I can see.
but the motion is 28%.
Yes.
Equivalent to 56 excluding GST. Any discussion or amendments? If not, all in favour of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. Item number 7. Lower Hackettree huts. Any questions to Mr. Guthrie? There's a map indicates very clearly, or perhaps you'd like to explain why, Mr. Guthrie.
Yes, thanks through the chair. The Lower Hackettree have had some issues with water quality for a number of years. And certainly council has had its own challenges in this location as well. But it's fair to say the Upper Hackettree water supply is now of reasonable quality, good standard of treatment. And they have made a couple of approaches in recent times to get access to our supply. And the previous request, as a result of the previous request, we actually carried out an investigation to work out the feasibility of joining the two schemes. Once that investigation had been concluded, they had in fact made some further investment in some infrastructure, and the interest in joining had gone again. Only to re-rise again as a result of a recent water quality issue that they've been experiencing. So hence the most recent request.
Any further questions? Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. I think this is a good idea, and under the three waters, obviously, we probably need to do something. But my question was regarding if we hook all the the new people onto it, where is our liability with the pipes from the point of it being received down there to all of their houses? If they suddenly had better, higher pressure and all the pipes blew out, where's the liability? Does it sit with us or the property owners?
Yeah, so we're a bit cautious of the maintaining levels of service in the sense that we don't want to suddenly give them a large increase in levels of service in terms of pressure. So the intention is to install some equipment which will regulate the pressure, and we'll be able to dial it into what they are used to. There is still a risk, it's indicated in the report, there is still a risk taking over that existing infrastructure, the existing pipework, but we still think it's worth pursuing it.
Thank you.
Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not sure whether you're ready to take a motion, but I think it's something that we almost are obliged to do in light of regulations that are coming as far as potable water and all these sorts of things. So I don't know.
I'll refer back to you in just a second. There's another couple of
That's all right.
questions, perhaps. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'm just looking at it and thinking it's going to cost $50,000 to connect in, and we join them up if we elect to do that. Why should we do that? Why don't we charge them to join the club, so to speak, because they've been out their own? If I've got my private water scheme at home, which I look after myself, would you like that as well? And I join the club and you do all the maintenance on it and I pay what I pay. I'm just not sure whether they should join for nothing, because there's money to spend on this scheme, which every ratepayer water user will contribute to. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I'm not saying it might be fair either.
Comment, Mr. Guthrie?
Yeah, if I may, through the chair. So as part of the, in recognition that there should be some form of capital contribution to joining the council scheme and getting the advantages that that provides, they are electing to vest in council the equipment that they have available as part of their current treatment system. It is itemised in the report. It certainly doesn't come to the value of 50-odd thousand, but it's probably going to be within cure of the capital cost that we will expend joining them up, in terms of being able to recover that the cost of that equipment.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The capacity of the equipment I've got there, is that big enough to take it?
Yeah, certainly the investigation work that we've done has confirmed that we're in pretty good stead to be able to supply them.
So there's no extra cost for that?
There's a question mark over the pressure pumps that we've currently got and whether or not they might have to be upgraded. But in more recent times, we've had another look at their expected consumption, and we think we'll be fine. So,
Councillor Mackay?
Just a question, Mr. Chair. Has at any time in history the Ashburton District Council attempted to put a water supply into the Lower Hackatree area? I may have a supplementary.
I'm not aware of any, but I might be wrong.
Supplementary?
I think I better leave it. I'd love to keep going. Okay. Does any staff member have a recollection of the meeting held in the Wakanui School Hall, water supply, I think it was, into Hackatree in the very early 2000s?
Through the chair, the meeting that I attended was regarding a wastewater proposal.
Okay, thank you. Am I correct, Mr. Chair, that one has to do wastewater or drinking water supplies, sometimes to get effluent systems, site-by-site effluent systems legal and compliant, like out in the northwest corner of Ashburton.
I can't answer that. Mr. Guthrie's the expert.
No, I'm sorry, I don't know I don't know the answer to that question.
I think until he can, like the small villages that still use septic tanks, until he can decrease that that system is illegal and we have to institute wastewater systems, I guess they'll continue as they are at the moment. Mr. Mayor.
The equipment that they're going to give us for joining the club, joining the other scheme, will it be used on the scheme or will it be used somewhere else?
I think the intention would be to try and get value from it wherever we can.
So it's not
It
used
may
on
not
site.
be used on site. There's a couple of tanks which may be utilised as ultimately as part of the scheme.
Councillor Ronson.
Thank you. Are there any wellheads that we're going to be up for capping?
No, we haven't considered the wellhead, but yes, it's probably a worthy point. We may have to do something with the wellhead.
Thank you. And supplementary, on page 23 on Stella, under the financial implications, where is funding coming from? There's a sentence there at the bottom about who would be paying. So will the people be rated for that supply now?
Yeah, so one of the key bits of information that we provided the President when we spoke to them was the intention that it would have to be extremely fair on the existing ratepayers, and that meant that each dwelling unit, each hut, would have to pay an instance of the water rate. So that's the reference to what they would be paying.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Oh, Councillor Mackay.
My question is in relation to one of the previous questions about the wellhead. Have I got it right that the Upper Hecatory scheme is actually going to supply the water to the Lower Hecatory scheme? This is what this is all about?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, in relation to the question before, does the present Upper Hecatory water system have a proper and compliant wellhead?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, it does.
Thank you.
But because we will have a bore near our existing drinking water protection zone, it would be advisable to make sure that it's secure as well.
Good.
Mr. Mayor.
To join in, they would end up paying $415 because that's what everyone else pays per year. But what do they pay at the moment? Do you know?
No, I think that question was, or that information is available, but I haven't got it in the report. I haven't got it at the top of my head. It was provided by the President when we spoke to him.
Can you recall if it's similar? Or?
No, I think they're paying less.
No further questions. Councillor Latham, would you like to move your motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'll move the recommendation to council there that the Infrastructure Service Committee recommends as it's laid out there on the front page.
Seconded, Councillor Lovett. Any further discussion? If not, all in favour of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, carried. Item number 8. Welcome, Brian. Perhaps before we start with Brian, I'll ask Mr. McCann to perhaps give us a bit of a background to what you've got, because there's a lot of information there.
Yes. Thank you. There is a lot of information for you, councillors, and this information is provided to you really for your information to know what sort of information we record, what gets shared in a public arena, and Brian will explain to you about the Roading Efficiency Group and why they were formed and the whole background of the formation of this group and what it was for and what it was set out to achieve in terms of roading information across all councils in New Zealand. What you do have in these three documents is this big document is a really thorough document with all the linkages to information on all local authorities. So if one desires to go and check out all the various metrics, not only on our network, but compare with any other network, you can click on all those links and do that. The Roading Efficiency Group do provide an annual report, and that's the other document, which is a two-pager, which is a summary sort of dashboard. And this one that is attached is a year old. So don't read into the figures and that too much, because that information has already been considered by our team and implemented as part of our activity management plan. So things have changed in the last year since this report was generated. The next one for this past year will come out in December and will be publicly available to anyone on their website. So, and then the third document is one that's just a bit of a summary that our staff provided just to explain those bits and pieces in that dashboard where you see that our figures are very low or very high. There's an explanation of what it means for us and what we're doing about it. I would suggest that if you do want more information, that we perhaps have a workshop, or by all means contact us and we can delve into even more information and look at comparisons with our peer group and other councils. But if I can just ask Brian if he can just sort of give an overview of the Roading Efficiency Group and how it works and how we participate in that group. Thanks, Brian.
Yes, well basically, the group was established, as stated there, in 2012, leading on from the work done from the Road Maintenance Task Force of 2011. It was as a result of public perception back in those days on the efficiencies of local government, or lack of efficiency in some areas, and what they wanted to do was to try and highlight to the public of what local government did as a whole. Part of that obviously is the transport sector, and hence the task force was set up, and then this Road Efficiency Group following on in 2012. Since that time, they've been working with road controlling authorities throughout the country and NZTA, trying to establish what we actually do and how we measure it, how we collect data, trying to standardise that across all of the various local authorities and come up with the report that is now being tabled, and that is the first iteration of that report. It is still got a long way to go to meet everybody's requirements, and if you have concerns or questions regarding that report, you need to go to the Road Efficiency Group to get them answered, as we would have to do ourselves from the roading side of things. That's pretty much what it's there for. It's been working with the industry, as I said, with the road controlling authority groups. The Canterbury region is very well represented on the various aspects of the Road Efficiency Group's workforce. We have Deborah also in our group. As you can see here, she's been brought in to help out in the Evidence and Outcomes work group. We have Yvonne Warner from Waimakariri. She works on the group as well. We're having a good day with these computers today. But basically, Canterbury, within the Reg group, has been extremely vocal, very prominent, because we want to see what they're doing, how they're doing it, and want to be involved in how that information is displayed right across the country. So the members of the Reg group at times think that we perhaps are a little bit too vocal. But we're certainly getting our message across. And if you go into their particular website, which is the Road Efficiency Group, which is REG, the executive website, so REG Executive, if you go into that, you'll get all the information that you require, plus you'll be able to pick up a similar report for every local authority in the country. Oops, wrong one, sorry. So basically the report itself works on a very large number of data and other areas that we have, and over the years I've been trying to standardise that nationally so that everybody's working on the same, to the same rules and the same way of getting that information, putting it together, and that's what Deborah's been involved in over the last 3, possibly 4 years, working with them on this. As we said before, it's the first iteration, so we haven't quite got it right yet. The next one that comes out in December hopefully will include a lot of the comments that have already come in that we know of from various people and establishments around the country. The report, this is the first page of it. There's a large amount of data on here, and it's divided up into various rectangular sections. And you'll see with Deborah's done in some of those sections where we're trying to anticipate areas where you may have got some questions, and she has given you an indication of how that data has been got together and how it affects us. And that's the second page, as you can see. Quite a large amount of data. A lot of it is, well, it's all our data, but some of it is stuff that we cannot control regardless one way or the other. Like, for argument's sake, if we don't have a lot of improvement works, then we would get a fail. If we had 3 or 4 improvement projects, we would get a pass. But each year we may not have any improvement projects because we tend to concentrate entirely within our district on maintenance, operations and renewals, not improvement, not capital improvements within the roading network. So there's things like that that are a little bit iffy-washy at present, but across the board in general, we feel it'll be a good representative of how each council is going, what they're doing, and you will be able to eventually, they hope, compare everybody side by side on the one sheet, but we'll wait and see on how that goes.
Thanks, Brian. When you say they compare with one another, I see you've got about 3 or 4 groups. There's the municipals, there's the large rural, and then there's, we're in that group for a bit smaller rural. Will we be compared against everybody in New Zealand or just those in our group?
You can compare yourself against everybody in New Zealand, or you can consider yourself as part of a peer group, and we're part of that peer group at the bottom. It's entirely how you look at the figures. There's a national line at times, which is the average of everybody across the country, or there's a peer group line.
Councillor Braham, you've got a question?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Brian, is this just a technical document with a lot of data, or you want us to learn this out by head, or what are you doing with it? After looking at it last night, I decided the red wine was better than this bit of information.
As we said right from the word go, it's a means that we're trying to establish to measure the efficiencies of councils right across the country, one against one another, given that each one is separate in their geology, geography, and makeup of demographic. So you've got to take that into account. So there's lots of things that go into it. You've got to realise just where things are coming from, what it gives you the gross domestic product, it gives you all sorts of things to try and weigh up where you think you may be alongside somebody so that you can compare apples with apples.
Through the chair, if I can add, what this will do is once it has settled and we have got really good comparative information, particularly using the new one network road classification, which all councils are using, it gives us a very good means of benchmarking against other councils. So if we ever present reports looking for funding or any decisions for you, you can consider exactly what other similar councils in the peer group do and how much they spend and etc. So we'll have all access to all that sort of information to help you with your decisions going forward.
I think we've always known the kilometres of road that we've got when you look at our district with right from urban, rural, bridges, everything. I mean, some have only got a few 100k of roads, small hundreds, and we've got, 2,500 sort of thing. We've got a huge roading network. Any further questions? Councillor Mackay?
Are we the fourth or fifth largest in New Zealand roading
I
authority?
think Auckland, since Auckland went to a major city, it's thrown us back one stage. I think, of course, Brian might know. Brian?
Yeah, Auckland is by far and away the largest, followed by Southland, followed by Clutha, followed by ourselves. And we're pretty much about to be overtaken, if you like, by Selwyn.
Very interesting if you compare the two reports. If you get this report and it explains and look at it against the one with the dots on, but you've got to sit down and concentrate. It's not, as Lane said, do it first thing after breakfast. Any further questions of Brian? Will somebody like to move that we receive this report? Councillor Brown?
I did.
Seconded Councillor Ronson. Any further discussion? If not, all in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Thanks, Brian. You've given them something to go home and do their homework on. Item number 9, end of year performance report. Perhaps you better not, better stay there, Brian. And Andy, you're included in this too. Anything either of you two would like to add to it at this stage, or do we go straight to questions?
Straight to questions is fine by me.
Same here, I've got
Hello? Any questions? Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Page 53, I saw it last night as well. 19 stormwater system performances complaints. Is it the council staff or is it just connections from houses?
Sorry, I don't have the information on what individual requests were, but typically the type of complaints we would get would be anything from a blocked stormwater connection, an outlet to the curb type of arrangement.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of those complaints come through as a stormwater complaint, but they actually turn out to be civil matters between private property as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
Just when I read these reports, you have targets. How do you set your targets? Is it an incremental improvement on previous years, or or what you think is reasonable, or how are the targets set?
I'll take this one first. For the water services stuff, there's a lot of work done when we're doing the long-term plan at that time, and we'll bring information to council to consider those targets. There should be, in theory, a direct connection between the target we are striving to meet and the cost of providing the service. So if we suggest that we want a 90% satisfaction in water, well then, based on the current targets, we should be spending a bit more money, perhaps. Yeah, that's the tension.
And for the roading transportation side, some of them are requirements of the Department of Internal Affairs, DIA. Others are measured around historical performance and what we've got for that performance, like for argument's sake, the metal quantities for unsealed roads, etc.
Just a quick question. So if you had endless amount of money, you would achieve 100% or 99.5% of the targets. Is that what you're saying essentially? Yeah.
I think as far as our roading goes, even if we had unlimited money, there'd always be somebody that has, my pothole hasn't been fixed quick enough. So
the other thing with the levels of service that we do provide, it's a funding issue, obviously, but NZTA have their levels of service that they will pay on. So if we have a hierarchy of roads and we are in the bottom 3 of that hierarchy, and so they expect a road not to be perfect, they will not pay full subsidy if that road is perfect. In their view, it's greater value for money to put it into city motorways, etc., rather than our low-cost roads.
Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is on we provide quality transport services for the district, and it goes to the sealed local road network is smooth. What is smooth? I do note that further down, because of the ESQUIS, it's a reduction in fatalities. So is smooth, for example, Havelock Street just out here? Is it Harrison Street between Oak Grove and Ellens Road? Or is it Ellens Road?
It has nothing to do with individual roads other than, as a whole, we measure the, what would you call it? We call it NASRA, which is how bumpy, for want of a better word, the road actually is. The higher the NASRA, the bumpier the road. We measure the number of vehicle kilometres travelled on our roads, and we do a summation between the NASRA and the number of vehicles travelling. And if you get 95%, it means that 95% of the vehicle kilometres travelled in any 1 year on your local network have travelled on what is classified as a smooth road. That smooth road for us is under 100 NASRA.
Could you explain how it's actually measured? Does somebody go along with an instrument or a machine, or is it physically measured? Or
it's measured physically by a car that has a calibration instrument set on your back axle, and it counts the number of boom, 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 boom that axle is doing.
Councillor Mackay?
So, Mr. Chair, the boom, boom, booms, are they similar to trying to get home in a boat in a southerly, where you go boom, boom, boom? Is that what it means?
What happens, they've got to drive at a particular speed, they've got to stay at that speed, and the calibration is set so that if, for argument's sake, they go across a manhole and it'll bounce, and it'll record that as, say, 150, 200 NASRA. If it's a nice smooth road, it'll be recorded as 25 to 50 sort of NASRA. And those figures are continuously being fed in over the entire district as a whole, over all our sealed roads, not the unsealed, because we don't run this type of machine on unsealed roads. And then, as I said, the calculation is done based on the traffic counts that we do for our roads, the Ks that we have on our roads, and we do a number of traffic kilometres per year and that's worked back on the NASRA, and if there's over 95%, then it is classified as smooth, as far as we're concerned.
Councillor Mackay.
Mr Chair, can I thank you for the indulgence? I've learnt a lot, and from what I've gathered, sir, if you wanted to yourself, get on to Harrison Street between Oak Grove and Allington and go at 50 k's, I think you got the same effect. And that's nothing perhaps to do with roading, it's perhaps to do with the laying of a pipe.
Do we got the instruments, Brian, or do we contract it out to somebody to actually do it for us?
In the country at present, the way we do it is through WSP Opus, who have a particular machine that does it, and we contract out to them. You can do a similar type of exercise with that big truck, I just can't recall its name, that comes through on an annual basis doing the state highways.
Councillor Rollinson.
Thank you. And have we got a similar machine that can do footpaths? The reason I ask is because I got asked to go and look at some footpaths recently, and they're shocking. And because there was a red cone there, I haven't done my Snapseed solve yet. I'm going to go back and see if, because there was a red cone, I'm figuring somebody had looked at it. But, you know, some of our footpaths are terrible. Down on the east side of town. But is there a measurement, Brian, for footpaths? Or how do you decide that they're well maintained?
The footpaths are done on a condition rating basis, a physical condition rating. We have a series of photographs that we match to the existing condition. So they're measured from 1 to 5. Excellent being either 1 or 5, I'm not quite sure which way around it goes, down to very poor. And what we do is work our budgets out on the very poor and poor aspect to get repaired.
Thank you.
Do you rely on snap sentence solves as well to enlighten you where people's
Yes, most definitely. We rely on anything that comes in for immediate repairs if necessary. If we feel that a large section of footpath is getting a large number of CRMs, then we would certainly look to do some repairs, major repairs, renewal type work in that area.
No further questions? At least in the new CBD, all those tree root eruptions on the footpaths will be gone. We'll have super smooth. No further questions? Somebody like to move that we receive this report? Councillor Ronson, seconded Councillor Brown. Any further discussion? If not, all in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you. That is the end of our open meeting. Would somebody like to move that we move into committee, please? Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Lovett. All in favour, please say aye. Carried. Thank you very much, you two.